And welcome to the ACT Basics Prep course. This is the math section. This is part 1 and it discusses the basics. So with the math portion of the ACT, we already know what they're going to ask you. And you have a total of 33 algebra questions, and it's 14 that's pre-algebra, 10 that are elementary algebra, and 9 that are intermediate algebra questions. You have 23 geometry questions. You have 14 that are plane geometry questions, 9 coordinate geometry questions, and then we have 4 trig questions. So that means we know what they're going to ask you, so we can prepare for those questions. With the math section, you want to make sure that you have the proper calculator, and you want to make sure that you're familiar with the calculator. Of course, this is common sense stuff. We already know, these things. If you want to go into more detail, just check out the blog. But make sure your calculator can do things such as handling positive, negative, and fractional exponents. Make sure it can use parentheses. Make sure that it can graph simple functions, convert fractions to decimals, and vice versa. And perhaps even change a linear equation into y equal mx plus b form. If you don't know what that slope formula is, that means you probably will need some practice. And the same way with the reading passages, you want to make sure that you're doing the easy things on the first pass of the test, then doing the medium things, and doing the hard things or the difficult items. And remember, process of elimination, that will help you get rid of a lot of answer choices, even if you don't know how to work out a problem. If you just use common sense, sometimes you can figure out the questions. Now, the most difficult thing about the math section is most people don't know how to work out problems. So we need to use a combination of knowing what they're going to ask you, which we've just went over, and then brushing up on those basic skills. So for this math section, I'm just going to highlight some things, and then with the worksheet that comes along with it, you can make notes about what you need to work on and what you don't need to work on, so you can get the most points possible. Again, if you're having trouble with the basics, that means you really need to brush up on these, because if you don't even understand the basics, that means the difficult questions will be more difficult. But for instance, we know that they're only going to ask 4 trigonometry questions. So if you have a limited amount of time and you're not really good at trigonometry, and you're also having problems with algebra or geometry, they ask more questions involving those 2 topics. So you want to focus on those basic skills versus like the trigonometry, since they're only asking 4 of those questions. But again, all of this is in the workbook, so you can go through it in more detail, and more basic problems are on the blog. This video is just to kind of touch on it and cause you to make a mental note and an actual note on the workbook page about what you need to work on. So that was a little commercial break. So continuing on, when we're talking about process of elimination, let me say that again, process of elimination, we can look at ballparking, and that's just a fancy word for estimation. So if you have an example question such as this: there are 600 school children in the Lakeville district. If 54 of them are high school seniors, what is the percentage of high school seniors in the Lakeville district? So when you have numbers that aren't too clean to work with, you can ballpark them or estimate them or round them. If you look at 54, you would ballpark that to 50 or 55, and then use a basic formula to figure out the answer. So you want to think about the answer before looking at the answer choices, because if you just look at the answer choices, you can easily pick out a question or an answer that will fool you. Make sure that you're avoiding partial answers. Sometimes you have to do one operation and then do another operation to get the correct answer. So of course they're going to have the answer to that first operation in the answer choices. So that's why it's important to kind of think about the problem and make sure you know what you're going to put, or you know what to look for before you actually look at the answer choices to avoid confusion. And again, baby bites. Take a little bit at a time. You have about a minute for each question, so that's actually a lot of time. Don't feel rushed. But again, the more you practice, the more settled you'll be. The rush and anxiety comes in when you haven't been practicing. So that red herring is information you don't really need, but it's in the problem, and it's just there to trick you up. Avoid red herrings. Don't fall for it. And if you're really trying to work out a problem and you're spending too much time, you need to pick an answer choice and keep going, because you don't want to gobble up all your time by trying to prove that you know how to work out this problem. Just guess and keep going. And remember, you always want the letter of the day. Now, these are just some basic terms. We know that 0 is an even number, but it's not prime. Of course, you know what odd numbers are. There's only one even prime number between 0 and 100, and that's 2. And if you don't know the definitions of these words, that means you should look them up. So we have real numbers, rational numbers, irrational numbers, integers. Again, this information is going to be on the blog to help you out. A positive times a positive equals positive. A positive times a negative equals a negative. A negative times a negative equals positive. If we think about problems involving even and odd numbers, an even times an even equals even, odd times odd equals odd, even times odd equals even, an even number plus an even number equals even number, odd plus odd equals even plus odd equals odd. And you know, it might seem like this is random information, but you never know. Something might stick, and that might can cause you to get one more question correct. And again, digits, they're 10 digits. And you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are called digits. Now, how many digits does 364 have? 3 is a digit, 6 is a digit, 4 is a digit, so that's 3. And which digit is in the ones or units spot? And of course, that's 4. Of 4.56, which number is in the hundredths digits? The 6. When we're talking about prime numbers, remember 0 and 1 are not prime numbers. 2 is the only even prime number. There are no negative prime numbers. When we're thinking about absolute value, that's just the distance between that number and 0 on the number line, and that's always positive. Variables and coefficients, if you have a problem such as 3x plus 4y, which is the variable? The y and the x, and which is the coefficient? The 3 and the 4. Great job. Now, divisibility. Again, this is just some cool information to know. If you don't know it, I mean, it helps to learn it. But if you don't, you know, again, it really depends on you. How much do you want to succeed? So all even numbers are divisible by 2, and even numbers are numbers that end in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. If you want to divide a number by 3, that means you need to add up all the digits in the number, and if the sum of that is divisible by 3, then so is the number. For example, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, 6 plus 3 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3, so that means that number 12,123 is divisible by 3 as well. You know, a number can be divided by 4 if the last two numbers are divided by 4. If you look at the example, 358,912, 12 is divisible by 4, so that entire number is as well. You know, you can divide a number by 5 if the number ends in a 5 or 0. You know, you can divide a number by 6 if the number is divisible by 2 and 3. So, you know, a number is divisible by 7 by 2 tests. And, you know, the 7s are kind of difficult. But, you know, if you want to know what these tests are, just take a look at it. And, of course, there's always practice on the blog. 8s, that's like that 7's a little weird. If the last 3 digits are divisible by 8, so is the entire number. Dividing by 9 is similar to the rule by 3, except once you add all the digits up, if it's divisible by 9, that means that number is divisible by 9 as well. And you know you can divide a number by 10 if it ends in 0. Now factors and multiples, the difference between them is a factor is a number that can be divided evenly into that number. For example, 1, 3, 5, 15 are all factors of 15. When you multiply these numbers together, you get 15. Like 1 times 15 is 15, 3 times 5 is 15. So these are factors of 15. A multiple means that it can be divided evenly by that number. For example, multiples of 15 are 15, 30, 45, 60. So another way to remember that is factors are few, multiples are many. Of course, we have symbols. Is equal to is the equal sign. Is not equal to is the equal sign with that little strike through mark. Is less than is the sign beside it. Sum is an addition sign, difference is a minus sign. Is greater than, it looks like it's eating it up. Is less than or equal to, is greater than or equal to. Those are the same as the less than and greater than signs with the line up under it. Product is a times or an X, and quotient is the little line with the 2 dots above it. And of course, this is basic stuff. We know this, right? Right. Of course, exponents, this is something if you need help with, you need help with. And I'm just going through these, and I might not be doing such a great job explaining, but I'll make sure I add some videos that can go into more details that can help you in case you don't know these basic things. Okay, this is more stuff dealing with exponents, radicals, you know, a square root of a positive number x, so that when it's scared it equals x. A cube root is that when a cube root of a positive number x is cubed, it equals x. And if you have no idea what that means you should definitely look on the blog. And you can also do these on the calculator. So again, it's good to know how to do these things on the calculator because it can save you some time. These are rules about radicals to remember. Again, at this point, if you're kind of confused and you don't know what they mean or what I'm saying, if it makes no sense to you, definitely check out the blogs and some videos, and that will help you out. Let's see here. These are some good things to know. The square root of 2 is about 1.4, and the square root of 3 is about 1.7. It's just good to know some basic things so you don't have to put things in a calculator. Because sometimes if you're doing everything by calculator, you're actually wasting time. And remember, if you're doing this on your calculator, for all roots, remember to close the parentheses after you enter the number. You don't want to miscalculate something because you didn't use that last parenthesis sign. Of course, order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or making sure that you do parentheses first, exponents, multiply, divide, add, or subtract. And if you don't know what it is, practice on the blog and check out some videos. Math, do you know what the associative law means? It means when you add a string of numbers, you can add them in any order, and if you multiply numbers, you can do that in any order. For instance, 5 plus 6 plus 7 equals 7 plus 5 plus 6. It doesn't matter which ones you add together first, it all equals the same thing. It's the same thing with multiplying. 2 times 3 times 4 equals 4 times 3 times 2. Do you know the distributive law? This can be very helpful. And sometimes the way they write things on the ACT is just this law right here. So if you look at the example, A times B minus C equals AB minus AC. And another example is AB. Oh man, that's a typo. The first one should be AB plus C equals AB plus AC. And the second one is A times B minus C equals AB minus AC. Excuse me. Excuse that typo, please. Again, these are basic things. Do you know how to reduce fractions? Do you know how to compare fractions? Sometimes the bow tie method works. I wasn't able to do it so well on this PowerPoint, but again, There's practice on the blog, and you can check out some videos. Adding and subtracting fractions. Do you know how to multiply fractions? Do you know how to divide them? Do you know how to convert them from mixed numbers to vice versa? You know, that's an example. If you know how to do these things, this problem should be easy for you. Decimals. You know, do you know how to convert decimals by hand and in your calculator? Do you know how to add and subtract them? Do you know how to multiply decimals? Do you know how to divide them? Do you know how to compare them? This is very basic stuff, and if you're having problems with these, then that means you definitely have to do some work. Again, scientific notation basically are big numbers expressed in a small way, or really small numbers expressed in a small way. So positive exponent means you should move it to the right. A negative exponent means you should move to the left. And you have to have the decimal after the first number, and they'll try to trick you by having the decimal in the wrong place. So again, practice on the blog and videos as well. Ratios, relatively simple. Percentages, practice on the blog. Fractions and percent equivalents that might be helpful. 1/5 equals 0.2 equals 20%. 1/4 equals 0.25 equals 25%. 1/3 equals 0.33 or 33 1/3%. 1/2 equals 0.5 or 50%. Basics thing, more basics, more basic things. Averages, charts and graphs, combinations. You know, if any of this sounds unfamiliar, again, check out the blog and the videos on this channel related to the ACT. And I know I sound like a broken record, but this just goes to show, if you don't know these basics, that means you have to brush up on them to make the other portions of the math section easier for you. And so that concludes part 1. I'll see you in the next video. Great, guys.